You hear it? Yeah, it was like all in. And he goes like this. He goes, "Are we good?" Stole it. All right, here we are, guys. We've done a lot of episodes. You know, I had a lot of people coming in through, and yeah, today we have here Jack Munro. For the people that don't know Jack, he has been playing pickle for a very long time. Usually, I ask people to kind of introduce themselves. That said, I think about everyone in the pickleball world knows you, whether it was from 2013 or something to like now 2024. But if you just want to give us like a fun little one or two details about yourself, please go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I've been playing pickle forever. I started when I was 10, took a little hiatus for high school basketball, and now I'm back at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
So when you were young, I know we've already talked about this in a lot of the interviews, podcasts, whatever you've done, right? That said, you broke your arm, so you were naturally righty, I believe. You broke your arm, and you were pretty. How old were you?
10.
You were 10.
Yeah.
So at that point, like, was there anything going through your head where you're like, oh, like, am I ever going to go to play sports again, or were you just kind of like, oh, I'm 10, it'll heal, it'll just kind of move on?
Well, yeah, since it was a growth plate, I was worried that like it would just be a bit off.
Yeah.
But I never considered not playing sports.
Yeah.
And I mean, pickle was perfect since, I mean, it gave me time off. It gave me time to just, since as we know, it's so easy to play.
Yeah.
That's obviously,
Very easy.
yeah, that's what.
Easier than tennis.
yeah. That's what obviously helped me when I was in a sling to still be able to play it. So yeah. But I mean, I knew I'd play sports in the future.
Yeah. Was it really cool for you to get a lot of like that recognition from being, really young into the sport? And I think you're like the youngest 5-0 ever. I saw like a little article about that. And then obviously you go, back in the time where you started playing, you go into all these like public courts, and then it's you and then a bunch of 70-year-olds, right? So like, how did that feel? How did that go about?
Certainly weird because I mean it was the weirdest dynamic it could have been thrown in when I was 10, 11, 12. It definitely matured me a bit quicker, but I'm glad that obviously I went to high school still and I wasn't homeschooled traveling playing pickle, or else it'd be completely different.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a little less mature and a bit more off.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely, I learned a lot maturity wise being around these older folks that were like 40, 50, 60, and just how they talk, how to talk to them, or how to hold a conversation and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, you're put on basically in this situation that you would have probably never been in until you're about 50.
Yeah.
But you just happen to be 10 now, right? That's kind of what I told people too, because I started playing young, not as young as you, but pretty young at 18. And everyone you're playing with is like, well, at that time probably like 40 plus, instead of like 70 plus sort of thing. But that said, you talk to these people and you have to show like a different type of respect, a different type of, the way you talk and how you express yourself. Like it has to be a little more, almost like acute to some extent,
sure.
So you don't want to come across rude or whatever. So yeah, I totally get what you're saying. And in my case, I think it kind of helped my English get better too, because, at first it was like, just doing the minimum I can say or what I can do. And then, when you meet these people, you actually want to talk to them and learn about things. So you like try really hard to do so, But yeah, so, moving forward, obviously arm is not good. You end up playing, lefty a lot of the times. And then what about like you play basketball, right? So in your basketball days, were you like shooting righty? Were you shooting lefty? Like how did that go about?
Yeah, no, it was all righty still because that's where a lot of my strength came from, just from throwing. And then I had some finesse lefty, but it was never enough. Like, I mean, if you saw me shoot lefty, you'd be like, okay, it's a little off still.
Yeah.
It isn't perfect by any means, but I mean, in pickle, it's pretty mirrored, I'd say. Granted, I don't have like as much of a well-developed flick, but which is actually something that's pretty odd, is that even though I play mostly lefty, just because I don't have time to switch hands after every shot, I dink better with my right hand.
Okay.
Which is odd because I never train with my right hand at the kitchen line or for drops, and I have better drops as well, because I think I've broken my wrist, like truly, figuratively broken my wrist learning a flick so much that my left wrist is looser.
Okay.
So on dinks, it's more difficult to cock it back and hold it.
Okay.
Compared to my right hand, which I've never learned a flick, it's way more stable and firm.
Interesting.
So I can like when I mess with people or just play with my offhand with my right hand.
Yeah.
Granted, I'm like a 5-0 or 5-5 with my right hand.
Yeah.
I can dink better with my right hand because it's way more stable and I don't have that that flickiness that comes with my left hand.
Yeah, and that said, I totally understand what you're saying, and it also almost comes from, um, even though with your left hand in this case, you build a lot of good habits. It could also be part of like building slightly bad habits too, right? Like not everything we do is good, even though amateurs do
Yeah,
think
yeah,
so. It's like, oh, he went for this shot, and he missed it, but it looked good. So I mean, that said, it sounds kind of like maybe whether it's like the stiffness of it, or maybe it's like something that it's really hard to fix because you're going like super cucked upwards or whatever it is. Like you're able to do it better with your right hand, which I think is kind of cool. One thing, and I totally know what you're talking about, because one thing that I do now, even though I've been a little injured, is I actually just tape my wrist, and it helps keep it like kind of more stable. So when I'm thinking, I'm keeping like a straight wrist, where if I don't have the tape, it goes fully this way.
Yeah.
Especially, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but there's been so many times, not recently as much because I'm playing so much right side, but if I'm thinking backhand, I might scoop so much that I'll like double or triple hit the ball, and you just go, and you just go sideways. No, yeah, but dude, that's awesome. And then what made you want to, quote unquote, quit basketball and go back to pickleball?
Well, I mean, it was, senior year ended, and I mean, I reconnected with a couple of my old pickleball friends, old pickleball friends. So like, I mean, West Burroughs was one of the first ones, a couple people in the area, and just went out, hit with them, completely forgot how to play pickleball, but like my hand-eye was better. So it was odd because I wasn't as bad as I was back then. I was a little bit better just because I grew 4 or 5 years. So I was longer and I had better hand-eye.
Yeah.
But I still didn't know how to play. Like I didn't have the shots developed yet because I mean, back then there were no such thing as flicks. There were no such thing as, I don't know, like true, like, I mean, you were slice speeding up back then, stuff like that. So yeah, I just developed that different game. But I mean, after basketball, pickle just was calling my name.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And actually, you probably got a little bit lucky considering you went to UT, right?
Yeah.
Or you went to Texas, right? So then you got everybody there that you already knew, whether it was like Ben or Colin or Deckel, whatever. I drove with you for like the very first, like I think the very first few times that you played again, and we drove a Dreamland together. And I think just overall being in that spot just kind of helps so much. And then people already know you, people already like you, right? So I think that obviously goes a long way. And I guess like the transition from, let me just not play basketball anymore, I'm going to go play pickleball. And then what made you want to start like competing and playing tournaments again?
So yeah, I mean, I was not planning on going pro when I moved to Austin. I was just playing pickleball at like, 5-0 or a higher level.
Yeah.
And then I moved to Austin because I wanted to get a finance degree at UT, and the city surrounding it was pretty cool. And then I moved there. I literally moved to Austin knowing a friend of a friend, and then got connected to one person, kept talking, led to another, and then I'm playing at Dreamland with you. It also helps that, the Jack Munro name has some notoriety in the past.
Yeah.
So that helped a lot. But other than that, like, I wasn't planning on going pro until probably like a year and a half ago, where I actually started being able to qualify, and not only qualify, but get it to like the second round. And then I started playing on like a daily basis and training and, getting into better circles, which is, the most important thing. Because, like back in Cali, I was, you're the best one in your game, and you can't get better if you're the best one in your game. So then I'm playing games with you, I'm playing games with Zane, and now look at me,
I don't think Zane's that good, though.
Yeah, I'm clipping on Zane. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and obviously, I mean, part of it too has to do, like, Zane is such a cool guy, right? And the positive and also like a little bit the negative thing about Austin, in my opinion, from when I was there, is that there's such good players. There's also not a lot of courts, so then it's very cliquey a lot of the times, right? Because it's like you have like 8 players that are really good, and you have one court that's somewhat available. So if you are in the circle of the people that, kind of get along with each other, and in our case, it's like, the higher level, and then you get invited to that group more often than not, you're going to get better quicker. You're going to get more games, more practice, and you make more relationships. I think the biggest thing that I see for you, even though you're very, very good, is that you do a really good job with your social media. And, you put your little, probably an iPhone actually, or you probably put an iPhone on a tripod, then you record the matches. You get like, considering it's Zane, not that many good clips, so you get a bunch of good clips, right? And you post them, and then not only you get all the views and likes that you want from social media, but then you also get a lot of like visibility almost, right? Where I think there's a lot of people out there that do play really well, are really good, like they play with the right people, they train the right amount, but they have like zero visibility, You know, so I guess what do you take on that? What is your take on that?
Well, yeah, there's actually, I mean, I could talk for an hour about this, but that was one of the things that really helped me starting out was when I started playing with Zane and Deckel and, you know, Stefan or these groups. And like I was playing, obviously I went in there, even though it's rec, knowing that I was the worst one on the court.
Yeah.
And it capped me just because I was thinking that way. I was like, you know, I'm more scared making drops. I'm more scared making dinks. I don't want to speed up, or maybe I'm speeding up too much. And now I'm like overthinking in my head just because they're here and I'm still back here. And obviously 6 months goes by and you're over that feeling. But what helped really
6 months?
Yeah. But what really helped me with that feeling was just feeling like I was providing value in another way. And I mean, there's so many ways to do it, but that for me was grabbing my phone, putting it on a wall, obviously asking all three of them if I can record.
Yeah.
And if they say no, then we're done. But recording on the wall, just recording all the games. And then after, not only would I watch my footage to learn about what I did right and wrong, but I would, you know, trim the clips. Here's a 15-second good point. Here's something funny, or, you know, here's something cool that happened.
Yeah.
And then I would make it into a video and then send it into the group chat. Or if it's, you know, just as clip for Zane, then I'll send it to Zane or someone else and say like, yo, is it cool if I post this? If yes, do you want to tag, caption, or collaborate on this? And they would obviously respond. And I also gave them an out. I was like, if you don't want this on social media, then go ahead, tell me, and I'll go ahead and delete it from my camera roll.
Yeah.
So it was no pressure, and that was the way that I provided value back.
Yeah.
You know, because I almost felt like I owed them for, you know, for letting me into these games. Granted, they saw something in me. I wanted to give back in some way, and that was what I did. So I'm giving them free content, and you could see me collaborating with Deckel, Stefan, Zane, John, you know, Carlos, all these people in Austin. Just because I recorded the matches, and it would help them gain visibility, and the collaboration would help me grow my following as well as them. Because, you know, granted, whether I have a talent or not, you know, like my views or my videos were getting pretty good views, and that's what helped, you know, not only grow my following, but that's what could help them select me over another Jack Munro, who's also in Austin, who's also my level. Was providing that value just for free.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that goes a long way, and props to you for dealing with that, you know, so professionally, right? Because you could very much just take a quick video, be like, fuck it, you know, I don't care about these guys. I'm going to put this on, you know, I'm going to put Zane on blast and like move on, you know, but you didn't, right? So I guess, you know, one of the things that I'm kind of curious about is, you know, because when you do record, and I guess people don't really understand this, but like, you know, out of 2 hours, you might get 2 good points. Right, so it takes a very, very long time. So has there been a bunch of times, or maybe, I mean, maybe not as many because I know all of them and I know they're all kind of cool, but has there been any times where, you know, you record something for 2 hours, you're like, oh my God, like I can't get anything out of this, and you find one thing and then you put it on and they're like, oh no, I don't really want that out, or have they always been pretty good about it?
Typically, they've been pretty good. I've never had someone retract something that has been out. I'd tell them ahead of time, like, I'll delete it from my camera roll, like no pressure.
Yeah.
It's gone. It's going to float up in the air and disappear. Yeah. I've had like, you know, that happens not frequently, but it's happened enough times. But yeah, typically they laugh it off for, you know, you don't want to be only degrading. You also want to prop them up.
Yeah.
At the same time. So it's like, you have to have a good mix of it. Shoot, what was your question? My bad.
No, just basically, if anyone had ever been like, "Hey, dude, I don't love that video. Can you just like not post it?"
Yeah, I've had a few people do it, and I'm like,
name them.
and I'm like, okay, I delete it. You know, I never post it, and I don't even tell anyone because it's a one-on-one text.
Yeah, 100%.
So that's fine. And I've even had, you know, it happens not often, but there have been like 2-hour sessions where I go back and watch film and like there's literally nothing in it. Typically, like after I play, I reflect on the gameplay or just remember like whether we had any good points or not. And then if we didn't have any good points, then I'll just typically delete all that footage. Yeah. Just because I know that there was no good points, even though I'll typically, you know, sometimes if I'm bored or if I have time, then I'll watch it still just to see how I'm playing. But typically I want to watch film to also see how I'm playing as well as capture the good clips. And more often than not, there's at least 5 good clips in a 2-hour session, and you can also expand that out to 25 if you're thinking consciously about certain things. Even stuff as simple as like a good serve and return. You can break that down into a 30-minute or to a 30-second reel and actually voice over it or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's typically not. I mean, you're filming for 2 hours. Content, the amount of content isn't going to be the issue.
No, for sure. I totally understand this. I mean, you can make basically content out of anything, especially at that high of level. But, you know, when I think of, like, let's say you, Sincola, Dekel, and Zane playing, I'm thinking, well, the highlights is going to be Zane getting tagged, Dekel earning or double earning, Sincola hitting, like, an insane inside-out forehand or flick down the middle, and then you just have a lefty-righty combo, ATP righty, come over, like, finish lefty. There's always going to be something, right? And I guess, like, my last question about that would be, is there ever, because obviously, like, you film so much, right? And we play together and stuff that I know the phone's kind of like always up, which is completely cool and I love it. But is there some stuff that you're like, okay, like this is happening a little too much? You know, you're like, okay, I can't post this again, basically. Like, you know, so that's one of the things too, because a lot of you guys play together all the time, like maybe every day sort of thing. And when you have all the same 4 people or 5 people playing the same games, are you just like, I can't even get anything out of this? Or is it actually always something?
No, that's actually a pretty good eye. And that's why, I mean, you have to, you know, post even if it's Zane hitting the same scorpion or the same tomahawk 3 times in one session, you can expand it out and post it every month and then just keep it in your drafts. Yeah. So then people, you know, because people aren't going to remember that after a month. Right. People don't remember it after 3 days. Yeah. So that's what I do is just expand it out rather than posting it every other day. Yeah. I do it, you know, every month or something like that. Because you are right. I have, you know, like in my drafts or, you know, it's like, okay, Dekel's Scorpion or, you know, Dekel's Ernie. And then you just have to time it out. But, I mean, typically I have like, you know, which I'm probably going to drop a course on this, but like the way that I do social media and the way that I, you know, like capture, or make reels, I have like 2 different types of reels that I classify. One called filler and then the other like filler videos, which are just like, you know, like I know they're not going to pop off. They're just to post on a daily basis. Yeah, you've been consistent. And then other ones which I intend to go viral, which, you know, sometimes made, sometimes not, because the algo's all over the place. Yeah. And so those filler ones I will just do every 3 days, and then the viral ones will go every day or every other day or something like that. But yeah, that's what as long as I space out the fillers where it's like Dekel Scorpion every 3 weeks instead. Then,
even though he does it every day.
Yeah, exactly. Then it's fine. Because, you know, I can show, like, I mean, in my drafts, I have so much stuff, but as long as I space it out correctly, then people are just going to forget about it. Okay. In a good way.
No, that for sure. That makes a lot of sense. And very last question about this, and we'll kind of like keep on moving on. And I guess it's like a little double-edged sword, right? Because in pickleball, well, I mean, I'm sure there's more than pickleball, but we're in the pickleball scene, right? And I don't know if you agree, but I think there's definitely a lot of like bot followers out there, right? Where you're like, this doesn't make a lot of sense, you know? So I'm not going to put you in the spot. I'm not going to make you talk about it. That said, you know, what are your thoughts on, you know, you can go and buy followers or buy likes or buy comments. Like I've done the research, you know, but you can also actually go through Instagram and pay Instagram to kind of like somehow boost your post. So does that kind of count as like buying some form of like followers too? Or like what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think boosting for giveaways is the best way to get more engagement for giveaways. Right. Or for stuff like that. But just boosting posts or boosting just reels that aren't sponsored by a brand, then yeah, I also think it bites you in the butt a little bit because I do think that Instagram will give you that taste and then go back to baseline and then maybe below. So you want to boost it again. Yeah, of course. So you feel like to boost it again. Business right there. Yeah, exactly. So I do think once you do it once, then it could hurt your account if you don't do it many other times. Yeah. We both know many accounts that buy followers, and you could just tell by the lack of engagement. You know, like if you have a certain amount of followers and then you're getting very, very low engagement and you're making like decent reels, then obviously it's because you bought followers. But yeah, it actually is quite not quite common, but there are more people than you think that do it, obviously.
For sure. I actually, believe it or not, I'm gonna put myself on blast because I got so like obviously I spent a lot of money like marketing, like doing things like posting, uh obviously videos, reels, like editing all this stuff, and I got so frustrated with like people that have like 12,000 more followers than me that don't do one post a week, and I was like, okay, like what is going on, right? So then I actually went and kind of checked out what that looked like. So I'm like, okay, so like what does it really look like when you do buy followers? So I went to a random website. I bought 500 followers for like $20 just to kind of see what it was like. And like overnight I went to bed and I was like the next morning it was like plus 500. I was like, oh shit, like
Wow.
it's that easy.
Yeah,
Like it
yeah,
like
yeah.
literally I bought it at night. I was playing some video games, put it in the second screen, like whatever. Spent like $20 just to kind of see what it looks like. And then you can always unfollow them if you want to. So it doesn't, I mean, you can always make them unfollow you if you want to. So it doesn't even matter, right? And then it was like literally like next morning, it's like plus 500 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, holy, this is what people are doing, dog.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, what is going on?
Like, I want to be that business that just creates accounts and follows people and gets paid for it.
It's
You know?
crazy.
Like that's the business I want to be
Yeah,
in.
it's absolutely crazy.
Um,
Well, anyways, moving on. But
yeah.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Just go back to I think one of the most important things to grow your social media is collaboration.
Mhm.
And that's what I tapped into earlier with capturing videos and then turning it into reels and collaborating with people, not only tagging them, but collaborating.
Right.
And also reaching out to big, I guess, big companies or, big brands that have followers in the pickleball space, such as a Kitchen or, other brands like that, and then ask them to collaborate on your most viral piece of content. And then, after 3 months or 6 months, once your reel kind of pipes down a little bit or, loses its steam,
Delete it and post it again.
yeah, then just send it to one of those accounts and then ask them to collaborate with you, and then bang, you get that steam, you gain some of their followers as well. It's the same thing. I mean, we'll talk about it on the business side as well, but on social media, collaboration is one of the most important things.
Yeah,
for sure. That a lot of people don't tap into.
Yeah.
I mean, most of these pros minus you and a select others are just like, I'm just gonna pay someone to take pictures and film some B-roll when I go to this tournament, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like, no, that's not how you nourish your brand.
No, for sure. And I mean, I think a little bit of, obviously most people are lazy about it, which I also kind of understand. That said, like, I think the days of like, me paying you to take a cool video of me playing pickleball points and then posting it, I think those days are done too. Because I think for a little while last year, there was this thing where you would hire somebody to make a really cool video, quote unquote, really cool video of you playing, in the semifinals, like, hitting one backhand, then a slow motion forehand, and like a put away, and then like one yelling, and then you post, and it's like a recap of like the tournament, right? And even though it looks good and it might be nice to have at times, like people were just like singles recap, mixed recap, men's doubles recap, like, and it's like, dude, like you're wearing the same stuff every day. Like, it doesn't look, you know what I mean? And then like it's doing nothing for you, Yeah, I don't know. So I think we're kind of just past those days. I think we're at a point where, you should just try to basically stand out. So I guess talking about standing out, like what are some of the things that you can do? In your case, you did the tripod, videos, film sort of thing. In my case, I'm doing the podcast. So what are some of the things that other people can do?
Correct. So just to elaborate a little bit, what we talked about with like that film or those pictures is just one part of the pyramid. It's not the entire thing.
Right.
So like, I mean, posting that once or twice a week isn't bad, but you shouldn't rely on that to be your one post a week. But I mean, to stand out, I mean, we could talk for an entire day about this.
No, for sure.
But there's different ways to do it. One of the things that I like to do, no matter what I'm, whether what I'm passionate about, is just learn about the history of it.
Yeah.
So for example, when I was interested in trading or real estate, learn about the history of it, all the recessions, all the panics, all of the crashes that happened within the past 100 years, or learn about the important figures during that time period. Same thing in tennis. I think tennis is a pretty good follow. Like for people that like I really love, like Matteo Berrettini, or Roger Federer, or someone like that.
So, like using Matteo before Federer kind of pissed me off.
and just like studying them, their history, and not only how they play on the court, but how they tap into the business side. And so those were the people that I follow, and learning how they stood out, even in the tennis world, and then applying that to pickleball. I think a lot of things in the tennis world are applicable to pickleball. So I think that's a good thing. So for example, if you like Kobe, just kind of reading his books, learning from his playbook, and then applying that to here, because a lot of the stuff can apply to here.
For sure.
And I think that that will help you stand out just by learning from other people, and then obviously creating your little twist on it. But yeah, like, I mean, there's so many different ways to do it. I think social media is important, but obviously not everything. A good example is you could take a look at these people who just run clinics, and some of these people have pretty big following with zero social media,
Right.
just because they're a well-known name. So that goes to prove social media isn't everything, but there's certainly ways to stand out, such as like what you're doing with this pod, or having some sort of providing some sort of nuance on social media. So like for me, I wanted my kind of niche to be, appeal broadly, and by that I mean just don't curse too much, and stuff like that.
PG-13.
Yeah. And make stuff that's understandable and digestible for anyone, to the masses. And then I do want to be like, the funnier, younger face of the sport. And so that means tap in more with Gen Z, Gen X, or, millennials. I mean, and that was the route that I wanted to take. And that not only works in social media, but that also means I have to go to, these next gens or these younger tournaments. And, like I want to get involved, in like these juniors, or like coaching them, or, coaching a team of them, or whatever it is. I mean, my end goal in, 10, 15 years would be to start an academy or something like that.
Oh, Jack Munro Academy.
Yeah.
Dude, you're righty, but learn to play lefty. That's the slogan.
Yeah. But yeah, that was the route that I wanted to take, and those are the steps that I'm working towards it.
Yeah, no, dude, I think that's awesome. And that's a very, very long-term goal, right? So what are some of the short-term goals, considering you've made a, PPA semifinals, which is like incredibly hard to do now, right? You're playing with Julian a lot. You guys get to practice together. I guess like how's that dynamic, having somebody like Julian on your side, where, I mean, you're more of an OG, but he's almost been doing it for longer. It's kind of like a weird thing, right? And then obviously, you guys get to practice together. You guys get to play. He likes the left. Obviously, you like the right because you're lefty, quote unquote, kind of lefty. So like, how do you go about playing with someone like Julian? And are you guys gonna try and play the rest of the year together? What's that looking like nowadays?
Well, so obviously in any sport, but every player has a different archetype.
Yeah.
And for example, granted, like Julian has like an amazing forehand. When he's confident, he uses his 2E backhand. And my goal is to make him as confident as possible, because when he's up, then obviously he's the best one on the court. And I mean, we had the resources to succeed that you could see in the PPA semifinal, but obviously I'm keeping doors open, and I do want to, experiment with more players. And right now, like, I'm going in the list. So like, I'm a right side guy. I'm a lefty on the right side. And what players like that? And so, for example, exactly. So it's like, just like, I mean, I want to play as many tournaments as possible with, while still experimenting with different players, because, you play one tournament with a person, it doesn't really give the full picture,
right? Because
you have to learn them, their style, and their patterns. And so that's kind of where I stand right now, where, I'd love to run some with, with Riley, with Fed, with Zane, with you, with freaking whoever, just to figure out who I mesh with the best, where, whether our heads clash or not, whether we're on the same mental side of things. Strategy wise, if you're a dinker and I'm a banger, then what are we going to do? Or, stuff like that. That's kind of where I stand right now.
And personality wise, like, what is kind of like what you look for in a partner? Because play wise, it's kind of like always the same for everybody. You just want somebody that doesn't miss, someone that, like, maybe you're defensive, they're aggressive, sort of thing. But like, personality wise, what do you like mesh with the best, do you think?
So yeah, here's one of the things that I just talked about. So like, when I was growing up, or even like 2-3 years ago, since Ben was number one, I knew Ben. I really studied how Ben played, and his mental side of things. And while people may construe his mentality as more apathetic, I do view it as like stoic. And even though like he wins a point, he loses a point, same reaction. And so that's the
not lately though, not with the ball.
yeah. Ball can really mess things up. But so that was where I learned from Ben. And while while I do wish I did have more energy, and that's what I'm working on right now, I definitely need, since I'm more of that stoic type archetype, I love a partner that has a bit more energy.
Yeah.
Because even though I have energy, I don't show it.
Right.
And a partner that can kind of let me unleash it is, someone that I'd like to look for, as well as someone who's pretty level-headed. They aren't like, they don't get too involved in, I mean, granted, like the ball is an issue, or like if the ref says something, or if something, if something like that, like it doesn't get to you,
right?
Where you're kind of stonewalled with that stuff, and then because typically what you see is something like that happens. The player complains, they call a timeout, but it still affects them during the match, and then after the match they complain about it.
Right.
I'd rather just you call the timeout, you're over it, and then you just play the match.
Right.
And so that's something that's very, very important to me. And I mean, other than that, if you're talking about physical attributes, then I think two-e's very important.
Yeah.
Having, especially with the lefty, having two-e's that can speed up middle, like in that X formation, is very, very important. And I think that's one of the things that can help you beat those higher level players, especially them righty-righty combos, such as Ben and Colin, J-Dub and Dylan, or Matt and Fed, or something like that. Having a 2E is extremely important for off the bounce offense, as well as even what I'm working on right now, the ability to also run around a forehand, because you can do more running around a forehand than hitting a slice backhand.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are a couple of things. Maybe some length, the ability to Ernie a decent drive, because I like to while I do like hitting roll drops cross court, or I like getting the return back, I'll also be more than happy to run up to the net when my partner gets a good drive, and trusting that they have a good drive is a big thing.
Yeah, just to kind of shake and bake off of that too. Yeah, that's interesting. So I want to hear your thoughts on obviously we talk about physicality, and obviously we play together some rec games and stuff, and like I feel like we played really good, and we did some crazy stuff when we were just both having fun, right? Like, we're talking a little bit of shit, like I'm hitting a good shot, we're both like reacting to it, right? So that's kind of like what I feel like you like to play with. So somebody like Hayden would be kind of fun to, play with, right? And I play with Hayden, it's like super fun. Everything's a joke, everything, you're trying to win, obviously, but I mean, something happens, you make a little comment, you laugh, whatever. You also want somebody that, like something's always going to happen. So whether it's you, whether it's me, whether it's Hayden, like, you might get a weird ball bounce and you're like, what the fuck? So even if it's like very little, somebody that's there and be like, hey, don't worry about it. Like, just move on. It's all good. Like that really helps, right? So like one of the things, you didn't play tennis, did you? Okay, which is awesome, by the way.
Yeah.
That said, like in tennis, when I came from tennis, right, like you were always kind of supposed to do a certain shot depending on what was coming at you. And pickle was the same way, any sport the same way, right? But what I realized in pickleball for so long, and probably because it's new, right, is that everyone, not as much lately, but everyone was like a one-trick pony. It's like I can only think, like let's say Riley, for example. Like Riley is amazing, but he never ever slices a backhand ever, right? He'll never like really top spin a forehand. It's more of a slash push is, right? With Ben, usually he was always doing a slice third or slice backhand dink, whatever. Now he's starting to do the two hands. So obviously we're developing and we're getting better as we go, and we're learning more shots, right? But how important is it to just overall not have any weaknesses, right? Because what you mentioned is that, well, you want to have someone that has a two-hander on your side because they can speed up off the bounce, right? And nowadays that's getting better and better and better. But ideally on the court, you don't want to have like a safe spot, So I guess how important is it, in your opinion, if I'm playing somebody that's like slicing their backhand, why would I be slicing my backhand too? Why not would I roll their slice? So like, do you want to elaborate on that if you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. So It's a great conversation. And Dane, I actually kind of agree with Dane where he's like, don't, focus more on your strengths and your weaknesses, because if you make your strengths so good, then eventually they'll mask your weaknesses enough.
Mm-hmm.
So a good example of that is the archetype of someone who has a very good forehand and a very bad backhand.
Yeah.
But they run around their backhand to hit forehands.
Yeah, for sure. That's what I used to do.
You can become a top 25 player by just hitting forehands.
Yeah.
And
Jack
running,
stock, baby.
and running,
Jack stock, let's go.
yeah, and just running around your backhand.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I would focus on more, rather than fixing if you have a slice backhand and developing a two-e, while you should to be a more well-rounded player.
Yeah.
If you're playing the long game, that's what you do.
Yeah.
But I mean, it also isn't a bad thing to just make your strengths stronger.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, a good example of that is. Actually, I won't give any good examples. But you understand what I'm saying with that.
No, I totally get it. Hopefully the viewers get it too. No, but I totally get it, because, there used to be this thing where we're just going to do whatever Ben does, right? And then everyone's trying to play like Ben, and it's like, you're never going to be Ben like that, And then now, obviously, I mean, there's 1,000 different things going on, right? And Ben's been winning for so long. Like, I mean, you can name a lot of different things, but at least people are kind of like developing into their own players now, right? Instead of just like, I'm going to do whatever he does sort of thing. But going back to what I was talking about, if Ben dropped the ball, like everyone was like, okay, I'm going to drop the ball, right? But it's like, no, like if someone's hitting you a slice as a return, just drive it.
Yes.
Especially if it's heavy, But then you're like, okay, well, Ben drops it, so I'm going to drop it too. And then the ball's super heavy slice and you can't do it. Then you miss too many, right? So I guess that's kind of like the thing that I'm also like working on consciously when I'm on court. It's that, if someone's hitting a slice to me, most of the time, whether it's a forehand, backhand, ding, drop, drive, like it makes more sense to hit topspin out of a slice. Mm-hmm. If someone's hitting something flat, then I might hit slice. Like you see what I'm saying? So yeah. I guess that's kind of like my take on it. But obviously, do you remember playing me in SoCal back in like 2018?
Yeah, of course. I remember playing with Aspen at Bobby Riggs, or seeing you at Bobby Riggs for the first time with Tyson Callan, and I mean Rob, all of them.
Yeah, you were probably like, dude, this guy's like not 75. This is awesome.
It's so weird seeing someone young.
Dude, it's crazy. Do you also, I don't know if you remember this or not, but there was a guy named Stefan who used to run some leagues and ladders up in Bobby Riggs. And then you and your mom, I think, drove all the way from like Simi Valley to Bobby Riggs on a random Tuesday night just to play like pickleball for like 2 hours in this like huge ladder. Dude, like thinking about those days back in the day where you have to like drive 3-4 hours to play with good players, like things that is like all gone. Yeah. It was just so crazy.
Yeah. No, I remember those. I remember driving to Monterey. I mean, literally all of that.
Monterey? What for?
Yeah.
Who was out there?
we got a couple pros up there. And granted, they wanted us to do an exhibition, but it also helped that it was near the direction of everybody that was playing it. So, yeah, like, I mean, there's, thankfully, Simi had enough, like, local good players because we were so early to the curve that, I mean, it wasn't that big of an issue, but I mean, there's horror stories of other cities where, like, I mean, you're the only 5-0 in the city back then, and you have to drive, from Dallas to Austin or like that type of mileage in order to get a good game.
Dude, it was like impossible back then. Wow.
Yeah.
One thing that I know you wanted to touch on, and one thing that I want you to elaborate on is kind of like the road from like beginner to pro, or however you want to view it. Somebody like maybe you in this case, maybe like somebody like Dylan Frazier, that didn't play tennis whatsoever, started playing at 13, 14, and then now is like number 1 in the world. So, if you want to elaborate on kind of like what it takes, like, how to get it done, like what do you think should, happen within all those years?
Yeah. So just before I go into that, just to kind of touch back on what we were talking about. I mean, Dylan's another great example of he's if not the best right side player.
Oh, he's for sure the best right side.
Yes. Player. Okay. And his forehand is 80-90% of his shots. He has a backhand counter. Yeah. But I mean, his forehand is where all of his offense is. And if you're playing him, you're like hit to his backhand. Yeah. But you can't.
Well, J-Dub's there.
Exactly. So you can't. It's just having your strengths be better. And that's something that I'm consciously working on. And I mean, you're seeing with these younger kids that have, even like Dylan H, even J-Dub that have, more wrist in their shots. Speed ups are becoming more and more important. And that's how the Johns Pro are getting beat.
Yeah.
Is because they're just getting outsped up.
Yeah.
Even if it's on chaotic shots or, almost dumb speed ups. I mean, if you win one of those, not only do you get in your head, but it proves that you can speed up the ball and win even if you're down, like a 40-60 type ball, that you're still speeding up. And that's one of the things that we're going to see more is hopefully if we remove some of the power in the game with some of these paddles, then it'll be more spin oriented, which really grants a lot more potential to speed up and a lot more creativity because you can hit banana shots or, topspin lobs or, better flicks even from right next to your ankles.
Right. So actually, let's just touch on that real quick, because I actually do. I talked about paddle technology a lot, and I usually like to get everyone's take on it just to kind of see where everyone is at. But when I think of like who the best player in the world is, whether he's like winning or not right now, I still think it's Ben. Right, as good as JW is, as good as Riley is, people out there that are obviously beating them in those, but I still think Ben is the best because when I watch Ben play, like everybody's trying to keep the ball away from him, and if you do go at him, you're basically losing, right? So it's like, when you watch, obviously J-Dub and Dylan are winning more often, but like people go to J-Dub, people don't go to Dylan. So to me, it's like, okay, then who's really like, who's more dangerous, who's doing more? Like, yeah, maybe the person hitting the ball, but why are they not hitting it to this guy, right? So most people don't want to go and get into Ben's patterns, right? And it's nearly impossible to get out of like whatever Ben's pattern is, So that said, like in your opinion, like with Ben losing a little bit more lately, and I'm a huge fan of Ben, but that, how much do you think it has to do with like the power in the paddles? How much do you think it has to do with like the ball? Or is it just like he's actually not as good as he was? Like what do you think?
So yeah, there are a couple different avenues to tap into there. One of the things is since there's very tight margins with pros being better than other pros, especially at that level. 2 missed returns a game off of a poor bounce makes a very big difference.
Yeah.
And so that's another thing. I'm not discounting the people who've beat them or have had, even people like me, where like, I mean, we won the last point against Zane and Riley off of a poor serve bounce. And like, you wouldn't have those with, if you had different, a different situation. And that could be one of them. The paddle tech is also another thing where, I mean, you're not fully ready because the ball's coming just a little bit harder.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, there actually is, there's players now whose speed up strategy is to just aim body and hit hard.
Yeah. And
that's obviously not a good long-term strategy. And it's also not a good long-term strategy to make friends.
Yeah, fair. Yeah.
But yeah, I do think that does have a portion of it, specifically in singles. I mean, as well. I mean, it's especially for passing shots. If you have shape and power, then it's 10 times as more difficult to beat you if you have both of those. And that's why, I mean, like my current stance with the paddle tech is that there should be a trade-off between power and control. So granted, dwell time, especially with some of the new tech, enhances both. You should have a trade-off for one or the other. So if you want more spin, you're going to use a spin paddle, or you want more spin and control, you're going to use a spin paddle or a control paddle. If you want more power, then you're going to use a power paddle. Because right now everything on the market is power, but to what extent you want power? I think that there should be a trade-off.
I think I don't disagree with you, but I think everything should be about the same. Like you don't have, like if you go and watch, any form of like racket sport now and you have tennis or ping pong or whatever, like nobody's like, I'm going to grab this like really powerful paddle and just like beat you up with it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't work that way. When I think of any sport that's not even racket related, I mean, like you play basketball, like all of you guys are playing with the same basketball. Granted, like we're all playing with a Vulcan now, but like, we also have other equipment, right? So it would be, to me, it's like one of those things where if we're playing basketball and then you have better shoes than me and you can just jump higher and like dunk over my ass, even though I'm like not that I'm taller, but I'm saying even though I'm like 5 inches taller, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, what the fuck is the point of getting good at jumping?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
yeah.
So that's kind of like how I see the paddle technology right now, where for me personally, it's just really frustrating because I'm naturally just a strong human, you know,
For sure.
like tall, you know, like I was pretty big,
Handsome.
like, no, just strong. I'm not saying, not talking about looks out here, but just like overall, I'm just like, you know, on a pickleball average speaking, I'm just like stronger than most people, you know, especially when I was like 220 sort of thing. So for someone out there to be, and I talked about it before, for somebody out there to just have that natural speed plus their hard work, you know, and then to be able to hit the ball harder than me because of a paddle, like what do I have left?
Yep, yep.
You see what I'm like? I'm
Yes.
already dealing with a lot
Yeah,
of weight
yeah.
and height to like get a lot faster or not get like as tired or things like that. And this person is like 5'5", 140 and is hitting the ball harder than me. Like it doesn't make any
Yes.
sense, right? So to be regulated to an extent where I have my strengths and my weaknesses, and you have your strength and your weaknesses, I think it would be a really good thing. But it seems like, okay, well, now you're like, you know, super fast and whatever. You're gonna grab a 48 grip paddle, and then it's gonna be super powerful. So you're gonna hit it harder than me, even though I'm like towering over you. Like it just doesn't
Yes.
make sense.
Yes,
That's how I see it.
that's actually that's really well put. I 100% agree, and nothing is. It really puts you down because nothing pisses me off more than when I hit a good, well placed speed up in a very good spot, and it comes back even at an awkward spot back. They just get it back, but I am not ready for it just because they're lucky enough to just get their paddle on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, especially in mix too. I mean, some of these women that have these type of paddles,
Mm-hmm.
they're 2 times as strong as me.
Yeah.
And I'm like what am I supposed to do? I mean,
Yeah.
like they're out handsing me. They're able to put balls away that I can't put away. I can't even speed up on them now because if they full swing, it could go anywhere compared to back then. Or if they use a normal paddle, then I have time to, you know, get on top of it. It definitely puts you down.
It does. And I think I do give props to certain people because some people just have like absolute like flawless technique. You know, like when you think of like a Jack Sock hitting a normal forehand drive with a Lux,
Yes.
it's like he's still hitting like the crap out of it, right? And still spinning, still good, but it's not like ridiculously to the point where you're like, what is going on? You know, but also like he's like one of the best, or well, not anymore, but he was one of the best tennis players in the world, especially in doubles,
Yeah.
and very, very good at singles.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, that makes sense. But for somebody that, you know, female, male, I don't care, but for somebody that does not have that, and the guy is like hitting the ball wrong, you know, to some extent, and then it's just going faster than mine, or in this case, let's say Jack's, you know, even though Jack's has like flawless form, that's what I just don't understand.
Yes.
You know, the other thing that frustrates me too, coming from like a, you know, overall strength standpoint, is like I do come from tennis. When the ball's high up at my size, like it should be put away. Yet with some of these paddles, I can't do it. And then you have, then again, somebody that doesn't have good form, doesn't have the strength, doesn't have like, you know, the height. And then as soon as like is remotely high, like, and I'm not known for my defense regardless, but even if they hit it to my partner, like it's just not coming back.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so it's just so frustrating. You know.
Yeah. And heat only, I'd say expands on that, where if it's hot or if it's humid, those paddles still hit hard, but every other paddle doesn't.
Right.
So you lose your power. Like for example, even with my paddle, when it's humid, obviously it will come off a little bit softer.
For sure.
But with those paddles, they still hit as hard.
Yeah.
So it's then you lose it. You lose your edge. That's why I do think that if you're gonna increase power, just what do you call it? Make the core smaller or tighter. That should be, you know, like if you want control, use a 16. If you want power, use a 12. And that should be the way that I would say pickleball paddles are. Those are the different types of pickleball paddles.
Yeah, but then again, you would still have to have some form of like maximum amount of power that you can get, but it's not clear as to what that is.
Yeah. So what in an ideal world, what paddle would be the most powerful paddle?
In an ideal world for me, or for like what
Yeah.
I think pickleball should be for like everybody, in the sense of, what are people gonna enjoy the most, or what I think they're gonna be watching,
Yeah.
or how I think pickleball should be played.
Say played.
Okay, so the way that I think pickleball should be played is as much spin as you want and like as little power as you possibly can. Because what do the people like the most? They like women's doubles, right? They like the boom, 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 back and forth, and men's doubles, you don't have that, right? And then now you just have all this extra power. And like, dude, I love, Declan Bar to death. Like, he's one of my good friends on tour, but it doesn't matter what paddle you give him, he's going to still hit the shit out of it. But because he's a big guy, right? But when there's people like that are not big guys that are doing the exact same thing, like that's where I don't see, like, it's not like fair for Deckel, for example, or for me, or for somebody. I mean, Jay had this issue for the longest time where, I mean, Jay's a big guy, and then he has a really, really, really soft paddle, and the guy can't do anything with it, right? So that's like super frustrating. So I think a lot of spin where you can create things whatever you want. I think creativity will be rewarded, and then if you actually are strong, it'll show, like Deckel or Jay or me or whoever it is. If you actually are super fast, it'll show. But you're giving everyone some form of that, like, realistic expectation of, okay, how do I need to get better? Like, what do I need to do? Okay, I need to get stronger. Yeah. Where now it's like, how do I need to get better? Let me get a fucking floppy paddle. That's what doesn't make any sense to me.
Correct. Yeah. No, I 100% agree with that.
What do you think?
Yeah. No, I think spin rewards creativity, and it also could reward some aggressiveness because more balls will go in.
Mm-hmm.
So then you could see more speed ups. As long as you don't have, too much power, then the hands paddles are still going to stay. It won't be the typical one counter down. You'll actually have a chance to get it when they counter it back.
Yeah, which I'm not against that. I don't know if it's because I can do it, but I'm not necessarily against that if you just completely speed up the wrong ball. Like, you should be punished to some extent. But the fact that now you can hit the right ball, like 8 out of 10 times, and the guy is reaching way over, hits it with the frame, and still a winner past the middle, like, that's what I don't love. But if you hit a bad speed up and it's too low and you go right at my chest and that's like my powerhouse sort of thing, like, yeah, you should be punished for that. It was a really bad shot. But like, now you can hit really bad shots and still get away with it, where like somewhere else it might not happen as much as it does in pickleball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That said, the one thing that I would be actually somewhat worried about with like a lot of grits, which already kind of happens, is that the more RPMs you get on the ball, the more it hits the tape, the more times it goes over. So we already get a lot of like, neck cords and stuff, especially Colin Johns.
Especially in the H and H Pablo against the Johns Pros.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, a lot of these neck cords are only against Colin. I love Colin; he's the best. But like that said, right? Like, back in the day when we were playing, even more for you, is that if you don't hit like the really good ball, that ball's gonna hit the tape. Doesn't have enough RPMs to go over the tape. It just kind of stays, or it trickles over. Now we're like driving the ball and putting so much spin on some of these shots that when it hits the net, it goes over your head, right? So like, if you do so with even more grit, I just don't know how like bad that would get. You don't want a lot of like tapes either all the time in pickleball.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know exactly which way is the perfect way to go, but
Yeah,
I mean, it'd be cool if somebody hit the tape and the ball went out sometimes too, instead of just like right over my head perfectly.
Yeah.
In the back corner. So what do you think about that?
No, I mean, especially to beat Colin, you aim for the tape.
Yeah, you have.
And that would become only more prevalent if you have those spinnier paddles. I think that is much, much better than the current situation that we'd have. And I mean, I think that you deal with it then and just learn how to play off the tape, which is easier said than done. There are going to be points where you just, it's going to hit you in the chest and you're just like, okay, like it can't.
But it would be slower, so you can actually react to it,
Good
right?
point.
That's kind of like the point you're trying to make.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. Road to pro? What do you think?
Oh, well, I mean, I will say that mine helped because I had that experience back then.
Yeah.
So like, you knew who I was, and
everybody knew Jack Munro, baby.
Junior mint, baby.
Junior mint.
Junior mint. So yeah, that helped. But I mean, regardless of that, I will say, like what I said, providing value to these people in some way, just for free, and not only being friendly with them on the court, but off the court, inviting them, inviting them out or, doing stuff with them. And that's what really brought me closer with a couple of these guys in Austin.
Be a good person, dog.
Yeah.
Be a good person.
Man. But it is important to have some sort of social media presence, not only for brands to reach out to you, but to also go outbound for partnerships.
Yeah.
Because, you're not always going to have the hookup where I can text you and say, hey, give me Ben's number so I can text him. You're going to have to, just cold outreach to Ben and be like, hey, bro, do you want a partner? Or something like that, rather than...
Don't do it to Ben, though. You can do it to a lot of other people. Use not to Ben.
Just so you have a presence on social media, so people can go like, okay, this is the list of people that I have to qualify with, the people that I could partner up with to qualify. And I'm going to go through all of them. Granted, some of their dupers are NR. I'm going to look up their names on Instagram, and that's typically what happens. And then they see some of your plays, some of you smiling or whatever off the court, and then they're more likely to select you.
Right.
I think that is very important. Appreciate that. What else? What else would you say?
From like road to pro?
Yeah.
I mean, I think you kind of hit. What is that saying? Like you hit the nail on the head or something like that. No, like I totally
English
agree.
is a second language.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the biggest thing that comes with all of that, right? Like I was saying, like being a good person, but it's like at the end of the day, if you want to get better, you have to understand that like the world is not really out there to get you. Most people are happy to help as much as they possibly can, and just kind of knowing that you try to do the same thing. And especially like when it comes to like rec games, when you get like that good chance of like playing with somebody good and kind of like quote unquote prove yourself, like just be kind of a joy around those people, right? Like don't go in and be like, I should have won that match or whatever, like get down, like
you get pissed yourself and throw your paddle or something.
Yeah, exactly. Like even though like first of all, I mean I've thrown my paddle before, obviously, right? And like first of all, like within like 0.03 seconds, you feel like an idiot, right? First and foremost. And secondly, it looks bad on you. And then third, like something could also happen that you don't want to happen. And then everyone's like, what is this guy doing? Like, it's just rec, or whatever it is, right? It's just pickleball. Like, it doesn't matter because everyone's going to have like some form of excuse for it anyways. So it's just, you might as well not do it, right? That said, when it comes to like just overall playing pickleball, playing rec games, drilling with your, friend or not friend or whatever, somebody you hook up with, like, just talk, hang out, like make it enjoyable as you possibly can.
Yeah, and that's another thing is when I watch my film, I also not only run real ideas past them or stuff like that. I also clip I'm hitting a high third and decide to run in on it. I will send that to the person that put that ball away, and I'll send it to him and say, hey, yo, like I'm asking for some feedback. Do you think this was the right idea, or do you think this was the right strategy? And then just conversing even after play about something like that. And I would say a good rule of thumb that's helped me on my road is I drill 33% of the time. I play rec, like fun rec, networking. Like I use it to network. I go to Urban Pickleball in Austin, and I just, I play with my offhand just to meet people with Longhorn Pickleball, kids my age, or just to network with other people. I do that 33% of the time, and then focused rec, which is with, other pros. And granted, we are laughing at points. We're also trying to play at the highest level. Also, whether it's money games or butts up, that's more focused rec. I do a third of that. So you're drilling a third, and then a third focused rec, and then a third just rec for fun. That'll help.
You got 1% left. What's up with that?
Watch film. No,
dude, I 100% agree, right? Like, at the end of the day, like, you are, like, whether you're making 50, 100, or, like, 600, you're still playing pickleball. Like, it's probably the coolest job you're ever going to have to some extent, So it's, just go out and enjoy it. One thing that about, because we've been playing for such a long time now, like, sometimes I do miss